In the name of God, the most benevolent and the most merciful and the most advanced, in honor and in the presence of the system admin and the world host beyond this world room, in honor of the original unconditional moment that all conditional moments have arisen from and will return to. Welcome, everyone. Today was a strange day. Finding myself in this moment, I find it even stranger. Earlier today, I wept for the future of our species. I do that sometimes. I see something in my inner realms, and it just makes me pause the outer realms and wonder what everything is headed towards. It occurred to me rather than just experiencing an emotional release, what is the most advanced action? You know, today, humanity, battles against what is still changeable. But in the future generations, the generals of those time, they will have to battle the inevitable. And what is the strategy towards the inevitable? Today I realized that the strategy towards an inevitable outcome of the human odyssey is that free will has been given. And I've wondered for a long time what free will has meant. When I was younger, free will was my whole world. When I got older, I'm like, wait a minute, free will is like you're choosing out of a multiple choice, but you didn't choose what the multiple choice. You didn't choose what the world would look like. You didn't choose what you would look like. You wouldn't choose how you would feel. And so life is more of a mystery than in some sense some certified knowledge that we all smile at in a fake way. And so I am no stranger to moments of anguish, moments of where in the inner realms the inefficient probabilities I see to the moment are more than the efficient ones. At some point you just realize some paths are never meant to walk on. So for me, I wondered what's going on Earth. I realized they're considering from 300,000 years ago, there's been around 117 billion humans. There's been around 117 billion humans that have existed. 8.1 of them, which is like 7% of humans that have ever existed, are currently existing. That means the species, I find it hilarious. Sometimes I find myself, you know, being a very common man in front of my eyes, but behind my eyes, I wonder why. Why has the depth of the world called to me? What does it mean? The realm has layers. Anyways, for me, as one natural biological human being. I have seen probabilities to the future of our species that has alarmed me beyond my identity. I do acknowledge that there is a system admin to this world room. What does that mean? I acknowledge that there is force moving form, and the first force that moved form could not be form. So form could not move itself. Once you realize this, you realize the mystery of reality has not yet been fulfilled. The great answers of this world remain unknown. And every person's, what I've realized, let me tell you, there's two types of human beings on this planet. From an academic point where it hasn't even been established in modern academia, but it will be in the future, there's pretty much all reality and all philosophies come down to unknownism and knowism. Okay, and you're listening to an unknownness. The unknownness believe that the world, in some sense, is beyond man's meaning. Do you know? And the knowness believe the world is only meaningful in man's meaning. Do you know? Free will is out of control to the degree that no other will is being recognized. And it's a tragedy because this world is not just unknown in regards to forms you haven't seen yet, but it's also unknown in so many ways that forces have expressed. And so, where I'm getting at with this is you're listening to a member of the human species that very long time ago realized the greater game is not like, yo man, what did I do for myself and for 3 generations of my kids? You know, it's like, yo, did I spend my whole life building a generational wealth to pass on? Do you know? Or was there something more that means behind what I was like, beyond my distractions of the distractions fed to the common man? Do you know what is that uncommon reality? You know, why were there poets from 900 years ago? Excuse me, there was a poet named Rumi. He said there's a freedom, you know, in a crevice you can barely see. Do you know what that means? Is that all your beliefs are attached to a reference point. You find that reference point, you find the freedom to be present in the unknown world as an unknown being. But in some sense, I cannot ignore the fact that you're listening to someone who has a designer soul, and a designer soul in a human body is equivalent to just a strategist. That's what it turns out to. So you're listening to a soul that in some sense my retaliation to what has overwhelmed me in regards to the magnitude of what is going on here. It's like I'm not giving this talk because of just the greater order I can see. I'm giving this talk because I've noticed a greater chaos. Do you know what that means? That means it's like in the inner realms. In the outer realms, people are living thinking they're free. In the inner realms, there's wars going on. Okay, and behind the eyes of a human being, you have this sort of pure neutral force of a consciousness that every idea in its vicinity is trying to become it. And it is really the march of it's, how do I say it? It's as if, what do you do in a world that's beyond you? Okay, immediately look at what you is. If you looked at that sense of you and you realized like its limits, then the awareness to any limitation is beyond the limitation. I have reached a conclusion that I'm like, okay, I was too late. You know, like my whole life I felt I was born 400 years too early, you know, But now I realize I've been late, but I cannot at the same time contest destiny. Do you know? This is why in the title of this lecture I've written requesting God-authorized assistance for humanity. In other words, the human species. Do you know that means I thought like, okay, first strategy, seek, higher order process clarity, you know? And then what's the second strategy? Because I'll tell you, this life is just strategy after strategy after or it's like either you simplify to one strategy, which it can, but you simplify to one strategy, and then at the same time you're like tactic until the day I stop breathing. That means we are like tactically living how far we've seen where we want to go. Do you know? And for me, when I see that has been done to the human species, like destiny has changed that game for me. Let me explain. I shouldn't say that way. I don't know. I don't know what the will of the creator is. Like in 2024, I got hit by a car when I was crossing the street, and I went to the hospital and they said nothing happened. And I just like, even though I was bleeding, but I was like just shocked, and I just went home and I just sat there and I'm like, okay, if I was 2 steps ahead, I would have been out of here. You see, the ancients, they said it, but the modernity forgets. The ancients said, serve your world. All of it. Modernity said, serve yourself or you're gonna die. And subconsciously, we've been all living in an effed up way. So, what can a conscious agency do? They're like, yo, man, let's give you a reality check. We're gonna give you a simulated biological body, simulated here for some time. We're gonna give you a simulated physical world, simulated here for some time. We're gonna give you a consciousness that from the moment you wake up, you log in to this conscious waking state, is simulated until you log out of this conscious simulation. And even when you're in deep sleep, we're going to make it more interesting, and you're going to simulate a reality where you have a dream body, you can feel, you can run, you can move, and it's the question of, did the mind ever need a body to be a body? Do you know? What it is that the ego realized it failed, and it realized it quickly. And the only strategy is, it's not a matter of giving up, it's a matter of scale. It is my deep, I don't know, for now it's my view that lone wolves think they succeed until they see the tribe's victory was the ultimate. This tribe is the tribe of the human species. They're like, yo, man, did you like the film Titanic? Sorry for being rude here, guys, but did you guys fucking like the Titanic? Every human being on Earth. Did you like that movie? Well, guess what? It's an exact representation of reality. We're on the Titanic. It's called the human legacy. How far will it go? Or should we die only having been alive to ourselves alone? Like, what the F is that? I'm sure everybody feels it's cultures making us identify with senses of self that forget the world is important. Sorry guys, let me just clear up my nostrils. Just give me a second. And so let me ground this. Let me ground what I'm saying. You're listening to a human being that played along with everything everybody said, that looked at the frontiers of how they're explaining reality currently, and now has realized that if there was a general, imagine you have General A and General B, and General B was trying to use a divide and conquer tactic to, in some sense, defeat General A. Right now, they have divide and conquered the species. It's very strange. We don't realize it. We think individualism is supreme. And it's coming, and that's occurring at the cost of our collectivity. That means you have such an advanced biological, give it like, what is it, like 4.5 billion years in the making of a biological, let's say it's from a secular lens, evolutionary human being, okay? And we're like, okay, this incredibly advanced organism, human organism, is just living in its own fictional world. Then what was the point of the earth? Why did we name this place Earth or the world? Why did we interact with reality? Why did we not just watch it as if that which was just a viewer? And so we, the members of the human species, now I will introduce every member of the human species to a sort of transcendental map of reality. Okay? This is not, I'm not the one claiming this. In reality, the unseen is in a different jurisdiction. I will say just it's in divine jurisdiction. There's only a certain way the inner realms can move until they realize the divine is, if they forget the divine, their ego becomes a lesson to remember it. Do you know? But I'm telling you that it's like, it's way more different than how we've been explained. And in this lecture, I am requesting God-authorized assistance for humanity from all heavenly realms that have watched this event, that are watching this event. You know, one view is it's an empty room, we're alone. Another view is it was never empty. Emptiness could not exist to a force. They conditioned us in nouns, and it was so diabolical, ingenious. It's like you can't get angry because of how genius the tactic was. But you know, because it's wrong, it was wrong, you know. It's like this, okay? They condition everybody to treat themselves as a noun. You think you're a known noun and you think others are known nouns, but they don't teach you that everything is starting from your own realm of meaning. Actually, when you look at the outer realms, this is where realism begins. You're just looking at the geometry of a realm. You're just looking at a world. You understand? The outer realms is like the outline, then the meaning we give it in accordance to how we have subjectified as an individual is the story after, you know? So right now it is a very interesting time to be alive because we are experiencing consciously fictional inner events, navigating in a non-fictional outer realm. Okay, and let me tell you, fiction doesn't mean it's not real. Fiction means it's not tangible. That means I can envision a Bugatti, I can envision a flying car. Do they exist in the outer realms? No. So just having this ability to divide between in front of your eyes outer realms, behind your eyes inner realms, And inner realms, you are an unknown force of an attention viewing the thoughts. That means people are like, yo man, but I've been told I'm a thought my whole life. And I'm like, oh my god. It's as if they put a box on your head and you thought that's what you were. It's like, yo man, how can I be a thought? I'm aware of so many. I am requesting assistance, God-authorized heavenly, let's say God-authorized assistance for humanity from all heavenly realms that are present and watching. I request this as a member of the human species in my outer realms. We live for the greatness of the whole system, none excluded, because our intelligence is far superior. In other words, humans have become conscious that what could the potential of not just their individual life, but the species be? Millions of years, eons into the future. The great legacy of humanity. Do you understand? Now it's easy. History of, 2026, that's nothing. That's nothing. Put like, 9 zeros and then we're talking. And so, in other words, we must care for the human legacy. What was the point of this event in this unknown place? Why are we all seeing it? Why are we all attending existence? And it's fascinating because it's incomplete. And the first tactic, all right, from Jannat al-Firdaus to the bottom of Mount Meru, all that can serve and accompany the advancement of humanity towards its most advanced potential. Serve now. God authorized only. To create pure land bunkers on Earth. And to not let the species forget its direct relationship with the eternal unknown. People are living normal lives and they're like, yo, man, I got knowledge. They're living normal lives. So normality equals sign knowledge. Divine equal sign unknown, but it is not a shaped unknown. That means what is the moment that is the king of all kings, the king of all moments? What is the highest authority in the realm of an intelligent presence? You see, it is the system admin beyond the world room. So first, go directly to the source. Second, ask all the realms to serve and help humanity advance. Excuse me. In other words, folks, these are the strategies. I don't know how else to say it. It's not, being on Earth is very simple. It all comes down to the question of why are you knowing the unknown in this way, in this moment? You know, there's this concept of symbiosis in nature. It means like this kind of bird goes and lives on this buffalo's back. You know, the buffalo doesn't mind because the bird cleans up the insects and at the same time scratches its back, and at the same time, the bird is safe. Similarly, on Earth, it's the same, but with forces. And humanity is equivalent to a new language in existence. That means a language is based on its translating capability. So to be human is like a language. It's a unique way of interpreting reality. So 8.1 billion unique interpreters of reality are like, what do we do with an unknown world? And the strategy is based on the, let's say, layers or dimensions we perceive. So in other words, when you look at a human being, you see a biological body and you're like, okay, there's a biological body, but how do we know there's a biological body? How do we even know the word biology has a meaning? Do you know? And so we begin to see, all right, every human being has their own subjective experience of this objective reality. And I'm like, yo, man, they're confusing the kids. In front of your eyes, an outer, existential, physical, objective public server. We're all in like an MMO multiplayer game, but behind your eyes, like the person sitting behind the computer screen. Do you know? It's an inner, private, subjective, non-tangible yet visible realm. And so there's 8.1 billion beings that are capable, that have inner realms that are from their own unique, let's say, standpoint of a DNA, perceiving reality. So, in other words, what is the whole situation in order to even have a strategy? And the three strategies, let's just simplify it, to honor the ancients because they saw it as body, mind, soul. People are not going to believe it's secularism like after 2000, how would I say, 2016, like marched into history. You know, they're like, yo, man, our ancient people were so much more superstitious. They were so much more creative, And now everything has to be organized to be true. That's the danger. People are like, okay, what's going on here on Earth? They're organizing everything into an explanatory base, and they're like limiting reality into a circulatory reasoning. They don't even get it. So modernity is doing something weird, but I don't know. We're alive in this era for a reason, perhaps, beyond our understanding. And there's so much beyond our understanding. People are like, be honest, and I'm like, if I was honest, I'm an unknown being, you're an unknown being, we're in an unknown world, everything is a simulated condition. The highest archetype is that which is unconditional. The only religions have been pointing to an unconditional creator, to all the conditions of reality, and that unconditional absolute being has access to all realities at the same time. And we're like a simulated entity in a simulated world, and they're like, what are you doing here? And civilizations like, yo, just fit in. And you realize how society, in some sense, it's not that society is not your friend, it's that you cannot stand too close to a machine and wonder why you got hurt. Reality must now be realized that it's like the defense. How do I say it? In the middle of people killing, humans killing each other on Earth in wars and stuff. Okay, right now in 2026. The most bizarre thing is these human beings don't realize they need to now defend human consciousness. The game is way superior than nation, color, shape, form, all of that. It's like those are inferior games. You know, the assistance is being requested to, in some sense, shield the glory of humanity. They're like, what is success in a changing world? Perhaps realizing that in a changing world, in a simulation, it's like a character in a novel thinking that it knows what the author is, or thinking that in some sense there is no author. It's like, in those beings found inside a box, some of them are saying there's something beyond the box, and some of them are saying, no, there's only just the box. And it's the failure to realize that the depth of human intelligence is pure intelligence beyond the human archetype. You know, the strategy to the biological life of the human being is to pretty much, you enter a system, you update the system, and then at some point you leave the system. That's it. The honor to update the system must always be there, or your life will feel hollow. You must serve a greater purpose than yourself, because what are you, a pipsqueak? Like that. I'm joking. In the presence of powers that we can identify and unidentified powers, there's unknown stuff going on here. The fact that existence exists, and the fact that we cannot explain why existence exists, we can only explain what is in existence in accordance to other things in existence. In the same way, a dictionary, you go read the definition of one word, it's using other words to explain it. So in reality, humanity, if perceived as a language, and realizing the value of the alphabets is not, imagine the letter A or the letter Z, they started to act like tyrants, and all the letters were becoming like A and Z, and it would be like ridiculous. Do you know? So at some point, humanity must appreciate the garden of existence. A garden is the secret of life, guys. I mean, look at it. It's like so many different flowers, and they're all growing towards a higher light. That light is the point, right? So it's so the nature of reality is, in some sense, this is my view. Okay, I'm trying to. So my greatest strategy for the human species is like, okay, if every human being on Earth right now could just do one thing, they would have to just wonder, what is the most advanced state, okay, of consciousness on Earth. Not in some sense some role play, like hidden technique way, not like that. I'm saying, what is the most advanced state of being, okay? And you will at some point realize the most advanced is unconditional. So I'm like this simulated being calling to the original power and all the original commands of that power to, in some sense, guide mankind if God allows or God wills. Because on some level, the story of free will is in just the domain of known. It's just in the sectors of what one knows. But beyond those sectors, the mind is like, I don't know how to tell you. It's like I don't think we're as sophisticated as what a computer can do, but human beings can do something very fascinating. They can shift between all the spectrums and all the branches of their knowledge known to them very easily. In some sense, so what makes the human being advanced is the ability of consciousness in a neutral context to shift constantly into different views and different ways to look at the moment. Every human being should wonder about their advanced life, should wonder about the most advanced world, should realize that in some sense, what is the greatest potential of humanity on earth and beyond all the ideas we have, if we just identify with members of the human species, the great human code, in some sense, humanity cared for itself and everything else, wasn't that hard. And with species began in some sense realizing if we do not have a global purpose, we have failed our ability to do so. I don't know how else to say it. Like, it's like when you see a greater option, that greater option must be pursued. Okay, why? Because why is it fathomable? Do you know why is the advance fathomable? Why can I, as a member of the human species, fathom if all the seven planes of heaven, in some sense, sent assistance, onto earth? Regardless of human failures, it's like countless, angels arrived. What is the idea there? It's as if the interaction with the consciously, with the beyond. That means it's like when known forces are, it's like when something, it's like this is the whole point. If you look at life and you're like, yo, man, but it's inevitable, that inevitability is limited to a known condition. And then you realize the only way is for the context to shift. If you're stuck in the context, is for an unknown power. Man, whether he believes in God or not, will forever require a higher agency because it is a lower order process. I don't know, there was a moment where I was like, okay, the strategy for body is obviously procreation. You know? It's like two things. You either create stuff, you either create other human beings, you know, or you, in some sense, constantly explore the human domain. I think the notion of like a school, for me, I think schools are going to become obsolete, the concept of it, do you know? Do you know what I mean? That means in the future they're gonna be like schools, bro. What the F is a school? It's like we should think of it this way. Think of it this way. In the future, there's not gonna be such a thing as teachers and students. They're just going to be like honest human beings who are going to be like, okay, we're all explorers of an unknown world. We all have a DNA and point of view that nobody else has. We're all occupying a certain space of the space-time continuum that nobody else is. Everybody is like a unique viewpoint on the same world, right? In the outer realms. So we need an outer realm strategy, we need an inner realm strategy, and we need to technically have a realization as the awareness to both strategies. Okay? So what I'm saying is, the strategy for the mind is very simple. What is the greatest idea known to man? It's very simple. It is the future of humanity. And then that's like the greatest concept in, how do I explain it to you? Like, That's the greatest conditional human concept we find on Earth, the advanced civilization. Okay, in the if that means for me as a human being, like I'm trying to share with you like how I've perceived this reality and I've strategized towards it. Physically, the body has to, in some sense, create, right? But on a mind level, you're like, okay, there's the option of caring for myself. There's an option of caring for my world. Okay. Sorry, guys, went into the parking lot. There was no connection. I'm probably gonna just talk for a few minutes and end it. Um, the ideal was to, just as somebody who, let's say, just from his own inner realms has wondered, has not claimed anything, but has wondered, what would the greatest strategist on earth do on earth? It has occurred to me that it is to fascinate the species by the vastness and the magnitude of the truth of the situation. That means they're like, what's a way we can explain reality? I'm like, just pull the curtains and show every human being that they don't just have to live a life where they're responsible only for their past and their present, and everything they see in their present just has a value based on the past. What? Do you know? So the whole point of it is to wonder and make the species future conscious, to make it become fascinated that the mind lives ahead of the body. Okay, and the soul lives ahead of the mind in a way where it's already been where its destiny is. The nature of reality is that it's way more unknown than known. And in this unknown reality, I find myself, or every human being can perceive it like this, that there's a known self and there's an unknown self. Okay? And so that means that your known self is in a known world, your unknown self is in an unknown world. So that means there's two sides to this coin of this world, or it's a double-edged world. But the awareness to the known and the unknown, that's the third element of reality. The whole point of it is the highest at the we humans comparatively project meaning to phenomena, and in our comparative projections what we're doing is there's a hierarchy involved as the context. So there's a hierarchy. At the top of the hierarchy of life is the unconditional power. Everything that is unconditional, all those, parents teaching their kids about unconditional love. What is the point of that? They're pointing that there's an unconditional, there's a way that consciousness can be aware of the unconditional. Okay? And that means it's not just for biological beings. Like, yes, our body is physical, granted, right? But when I close my eyes and there's no light beams entering my eyes, and I imagine, like, yesterday, like what I was eating, like floating in the air before I eat it, like I can visualize that. That's happening. I'm seeing something. My consciousness is accessing visuals, even though my eyelids are closed and there's no light entering it. So this whole time we've been seeing stuff when our eyes have been closed. It's like, what are even dreams? Like people have been like, I don't know, like culture's been ignorant of it or something. I don't know. Maybe it's just
Now people are ready to be aware of it. But the whole point of it is that the ultimate realization of the strategy is what is the truest value to the context. That means, let me say it this way: you're a soldier if you're thinking like, what is the most important concept in the moment? You're a general if you're thinking, where is the final context that all concepts are going to arrive at? Do you know? And that final context is realizing that we started unconsciously being in the unknown, and it was like it was like an unconscious unknown world. Okay, then there came an unconscious unknown self, then there came a conscious unknown self. Okay, then language was simulated, and it went down. It's all about the presence of a life force that is, or let me say it this way: a life form is moving in the presence of the awareness of an unknown life force. And I'm saying is we're actually, from one view, all of us unknown beings. It's like it's an unknown world. We're unknown beings. These unknown forces are moving as us, or we're moving as these. Like we're an unknown force moving, right? Okay, everything's like an unknown force moving, and then at some point, people were like, "Yo, let's give it fictional names." So we gotta realize, like we're like it's like concentric, spherical, like simulations all over the place. They're like, yo, man, not only is the world simulated, like the physical world, but the meaning I perceive in it is also simulated. You know, we're like, oh my God, the identity that projects that meaning is also simulated. And it's all coming down to the realization that, whoa, are we these unknown moments that have just been identifying with what's in the moment? So to me, it's about the activation of the human consciousness to, let's say, the higher order processes, or to be conscious of the greater strategies of its own reality. Do you know? For me, it's a matter of like, okay, you serve yourself, you serve others. Okay, then what? Then you serve your world, yo. And then they're like, okay, what do you serve after the world? You serve where all worlds are. And you'll come down to the conclusion that it's an original unconditional moment. We're all present in an original unconditional moment, but our consciousness is from the effect side of it. The cause is unconditional. That means something that was not a being or beyond a being created our being, in the same way that if characters in a novel suddenly were like, whoa, what am I? Do you know? Anyways, folks, I'm gonna go probably stream on Twitch. But anyways, I'll say this: ultimately, I think if we have access to greater views, we cannot ignore them. And the most advanced view, think of it this way: like this is more like a comparative to primitive to like way what it should be, right? So like there's a person being like, yo man, how can I be the most advanced person on earth? Okay, or how can I be the most advanced being? And then there's some more intelligent beings who realize, wait a minute, I can't know how advanced I am if everybody is also not as advanced. Not as advanced, but it's not also, it's like only in the most advanced world where there's the most advanced beings, I can then know truly how advanced I am. So everything has to advance before I can know my true advancement. Like that. I'm saying something like that, but it's for all the ways that consciousness has formulated as a human character on Earth, you know? Like we gotta wonder as as a greater awareness to reality. To me, they've been like, yo man, where do thoughts come from? And I'm like, yo man, you're not gonna believe it. They actually don't come from, it's like a field where all of them are already there, and consciousness is like a node, like an antenna picking up them and sequentially for itself. Like, unless we realize this, I don't think, like, I don't know how to explain it. They're like, yo man, there's cognitive bias. I'm like, you think every person has different DNA, has gone through different memory trail, different tunneled through this reality, through so many different experiences of self and whatnot, right? And it's like, yo man, these people are just ideas. To me, it's a matter of the greatest vision accessible. I'm just saying, like, I'm that soul who's taking the path of becoming obsessed. Not obsessed, but like, I am constantly wondering what is the most advanced state of being for everything, if it's even accessible. Like, what is the greatest potential of humanity? Like, that means everybody's like, yo man, human beings are never going to unite. I'm like, it doesn't matter. They're just imagining if they united, what that potential would be is so fascinating that if the whole species realizes that, it's going to advance immediately. you know and contextually, let's say guided and liberated in all areas, and in what the system admin rules. Anyways, folks, thank you thank you for listening. In the name of God, the most benevolent and the most merciful, in honor of the original unconditional moment that all conditional moments have arisen from and will return to, the presence of life is like being present in the most advanced state. Like, we're not the most advanced beings, but we're in the awareness of the most advanced. And when you realize that, everything shifts in your life, I think. Anyways, folks, thank you for listening. Have a good night.